So, welcome back to Gully to Gully. And as predicted by some, Australia have fought back and leveled the series 1-1, defeating India. It is 1-1. Probably going into it, I would have predicted the same after two tests, maybe win as well, but maybe at the other way around with Australia winning in Perth and India in Adelaide. But yes, the magic of the pink ball and Mitchell Stark and co. Too much for India to handle at the end of it. We'll discuss that first, and then the Pakistan South Africa series coming up, selections and all of that. Maybe even touch on the Champions Trophy. Let's see. There are some rumors that there is some conclusive decisions being made, but who knows until it's official. But anyways, India, Australia. Starting off with Jaiswal and his "you're bowling too slow" sledge
It always
to
happens, right? When they
getting
got
out
to say,
first ball.
yeah, I mean, look, Mitchell Stark is like an expert at this. The only thing is, he only does it at home in these test matches, in like ICC events or in like, sort of test matches that elsewhere, he doesn't quite get this first ball dream wicket, which he sometimes weirdly seems to conjure up every summer in Australia. Look, I mean, I think I would have predicted Australia to have been 2-0 up. Obviously Perth was a big shock and it was a brilliant victory by the Indians. Pink ball day night test, Adelaide, I had it down as Australia like 10 out of 10 times, right? I mean, if you look at their pink ball record at home, it's phenomenal. They've won, 12, 11 or 12 test matches at home,
Yeah.
lost only one day night. And that also was recently at the Gabba. Now, many of our fans will remember the 2016 Asad Shafiq heroics, but doesn't matter. Australia still took it home and at the end quite convincingly. But generally, in day-night test matches in Australia, Australia have a playbook that they
But
always use. Now,
would you have still predicted that after watching Bumrah at
yes,
Perth?
100%. Because, and I'll tell you why, it's because of the 2 week delay. Had this test match started 4 days after, may have been a different story. But 2 weeks seemed like a long time. They played a practice match in the middle, momentum was lost. And look, like, let's face it, yes, Bumrah is fantastic, probably the world's best bowler across formats. But other than Bumrah, right? I mean, look, Bumrah is still a human, right? He can't bowl all the overs. So Siraj, yes, he's very capable, but he's no Cummins or Stark or Hazelwood / Boland, right? So India rely a lot on just Bumrah. And whereas with the pink ball, all of Australia's fast bowlers, even the ones on the bench, are experts. I genuinely think now, look, the one caveat is Australia somehow, as luck would have it, have won out of the 12 test matches that they've won. They've only lost one day nighter, but in the 12 they've won the toss 11 times and batted first, right? So they just had luck going there. 10 or 11 times they won the toss, batted first. So the reason is because the afternoon session is beautiful for batting. And by the time the evening session comes along, when the ball moves around, your batters already have their eye in. So that effect is neutralized. So, it's different to in a normal test match where the morning when batters are getting their eye in is when you have the most moisture on day one, right? So then you have a chance of picking up early wickets. But that's why day-night test matches, one of the criticisms was it really favors the team winning the toss and batting first because you've got pristine conditions to bat earlier on. This time round, however, Rohit Sharma won the toss, batted first, was the right decision, but unfortunately, they couldn't capitalize. I mean, I have to give it to, was it Nitesh Kumar who got the tail wagging? I mean, they could have been all out for 120, 130, but they got to 180. And given that now they were having a go at Australia under lights, and Australia had to get their eye in when the conditions were most favorable to bowling, day one swinging in the evening, you thought India still had a chance, but I have to say Australia played really well. They didn't go after their shots. They just blunted the attack, and then the next morning or the next afternoon rather, they went all out and started playing their shot. So once the effect was neutralized, they didn't lose more than one wicket. They could really then go after the bowling on the second day. So I thought it was just brilliantly done. I mean, they've done it so many times, and ultimately when they got a lead, it's always going to be tough in a day-night match. Adelaide normally is a place after Sydney where the ball is a bit slow. It's a bit slower. The pitch keeps a bit lower. So India in a normal Test match in Adelaide would have probably had the advantage. A day-night match, home advantage. What goes around comes around. you know, we all believe in the home advantage. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, looking at cricket all in different parts, I'm not sure how relevant that is given what's happened in the New
True,
Zealand
very
England
true.
Test
Very
match and after what New
true.
Zealand did to India. It's a weird world where England got spanked by Pakistan and New Zealand spanked India, and now the
And I don't know what's
England is spanking
happening.
and convincingly as well. But anyways, back to look. I agree with what you're saying. Yes, conditions, and obviously we'll come on to Bumrah and the over reliance on him, and that in the end, cost India. I mean, he was the big difference in Perth. And look, he did threaten to do that in Adelaide, but there's only so much he can do, and given they need to use him not sparingly but carefully. The temptation always is that whenever there's a new batter, and especially in the top 4 or 5 in the Australian batting, that you bring Bumrah on. For example, when Head came into bat, I think Bumrah bowled 5-6 overs, and Rohit couldn't continue with him, which I know some people criticize. I think Ravi Shastri said in commentary, or somebody said in commentary, that they would have had Bumrah coming into bowl to Head, but he already had bowled 5 overs, 6 overs, and I don't think it would have been risky to keep him on, right? So I think that is probably the biggest issue that they've got. Siraj on paper obviously got 4 wickets and looks good, especially with his celebrations and his sledging and all of that. but but look, I think yeah, and I think part of it, and going into a bit of detail on the batting and the approach. Overall, I think for India it is concerning. Even on this tour and the 3 Test matches prior to this, they've had 3 collapses in 4 innings. I think against New Zealand it was 5 out of 6, or maybe 5.5 out of 6. So Rohit Sharma losing 4 in a row as captain. So there are lots of question marks. And look, I mean, we talk about the brand of cricket, and again, there are 2 exceptions here, given what England is doing to New Zealand and how Travis said badly in this match. But I still think, and I've said this previously, how India do like a Pujara type batter, and that's been very evident, I think, in most of in 3 or 4 innings, where they needed someone to just hang in there. Sort of like what the way Mick Sweeney and Labuschagne did in the first innings. They came in under lights. Very easy. You could have expected, like in Perth, Australia to collapse at like 40 for 5 or something, but
Hmm.
that didn't happen. They hung in there. And again, if you look at the contrast, right? So India batted under lights on day 2. They started their innings pretty much. I mean, Australia batted for a couple of sessions, and then India came in to bat. They batted 24 overs and they scored at 5 and over, but lost 5 wickets. And Australia batted 30 something overs and lost 1 wicket, and they played at less than 3 and over. Right, 86 for 1, I think, was in 33 overs.
Correct.
So there's a difference, right? Where you need someone to just hang in there. I know Mick Sweeney, he didn't play the prettiest innings, but that's all you need to do in these conditions. Get a 30, 40 of 100 and 120 balls to get you a start, and that did kind of lay the platform for Head to do what he did.
Look, I think ultimately, you made a couple of points, but let's just address this one here.
Mm.
It's one of those things, right? Why is Travis Head allowed to play the way he plays? It's because you've got Labuschagne and Smith before him to play well, I don't want to call them conventional by any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination, but what I mean is their approach to Test cricket is conventional, right? They sneak, they try and get their eye in. They'll go for the singles, doubles, ones, twos. They just try and get and then hit the bad ball for 4, but they won't take any unnecessary risks. Same with McSweeney above them in the opening slot. So Travis Head can play the way he plays because he's got these anchors. Similarly, Harry Brook is allowed to play the way he plays, because England have got the best anchor going around in the world, and that's Joe Root in Test cricket. India don't have that, right? The person is Virat Kohli, but Virat Kohli, yes, he got 100 in the last game, but he does
I mean, he
have
got
his
100 at it was great 100, but he came in when the score was like 300 for two or something, right? So
exactly, yeah, right, and there was no pressure and all that. But then he's had his vulnerabilities with the ball outside off stump for a long time, right? That's why his averages dip below 50. So it's not quite the same thing. So you're absolutely right. I mean, Pujara would walk into any other team, maybe not England because of Bazball, but and they've got Joe Root, but any other team, he'd be one of the first names on the team sheet when you're touring Australia, and especially given his record in Australia in the past. So, but here he is doing commentary for Cricinfo. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, he's not even part of the squad, right? And that for me is a bit like, okay, yes, it's great to back your young guns, your talent, Shubman Gill, Jaiswal, and all, but I mean, if nothing else, let them learn from the seniors who've done it before and have a demonstrated track record in probably the
yeah,
most difficult conditions, right? So, or at least I won't say difficult, but the alien conditions for an Indian batter. So, yeah, for me that's mind-boggling. And there's no point scoring at 5 runs and over when you're 5 wickets down and you haven't even got a lead, right? I mean, you can make all the headlines and you can be a martyr for Test cricket and make sure the Test cricket gains spectator value, but it doesn't count for much if you're not really going there and achieving your main objective, which is winning. And to be fair, in the first Test match, in the second innings, if you remember, there were times when Australia bowled brilliantly, but India did not let them get a
yeah,
wicket. When it was Jaiswal and Rahul, they just stuck in there. Rahul in particular, because his was the less prettier innings, but he had to do the thankless job of Jaiswal still went for his shots a little, but Rahul just kept his goals and had to sacrifice some of his shot making. And you saw it worked. It worked, right? I mean,
yeah,
Australia. There were moments when Australia were just. You thought, okay, this is just really unlucky to not get a wicket. But it's not just bad luck. It's also because India played brilliantly. They didn't let Australia get ahead. It was a classic Pujara thing, right? You keep coming at me, keep coming at me, keep coming at me, but then you'll get tired eventually, and then you'll be out, and I'm still here, right? It's what I think Harsha Bogle says all the time, right? That there is something brilliant about patience, right? Because
yeah,
eventually, and especially for the batter, because eventually the bowler will get tired out. And when he does, you're still there, right? And you can capitalize. Now, speaking of that, you mentioned Bumrah. Look, I mean, I'm one of the people who criticizes Rohit Sharma there. Now, I don't criticize him for taking him off. What I criticize him for is not bringing him on for another 20 overs. Travis Head batted for 20 overs and didn't have to face Bumrah barring that first over. That's ridiculous. And Travis Head has probably the best record against India. I mean, we like across all formats. Bumrah should have, okay, fine, rest him out for 5 overs, but then bring him back for a 2 over burst. You have to, right? You know that is the game. You've got Smith early. If you get Travis Head before he makes a significant score, you are really in the game. Right? If any of, or well, you might be in the driving seat, right? So that was a very, very crucial time in the game. And I thought Rohit Sharma, yes, if Bumrah needed that rest, fine, but after 5 overs, bring him back. He could have
yeah.
gone, freshened up in the dressing room and come back out and bowled. I mean, uh, I think it's just silly. 20 overs is a long time, especially for
Yeah,
someone like
not,
us.
yeah. Maybe he was influenced by Harshit Rana getting head out in the first match at Perth. Maybe he
Maybe,
thought that he might get him
maybe,
again.
maybe.
Maybe,
I
and
mean,
yeah, I know we get criticized for comparing, Pakistan and bringing Pakistan into everything, but it's just our reference point, I guess. I did see a bit of, Babar Azam type captaincy where
I knew it.
bringing
Yes.
on Ashwin, hoping that Head's gonna go after him, and eventually, I think he did Sky One, and he got dropped by Siraj of all people. But I think that was that was the hope, right? Where he just bring on Ashwin, Head's gonna have a go at him, and hopefully he'll miss Q1. And there did seem to be a bit of that, but also just hoping that Harshit or someone else might come in and do the trick.
But
So, so yeah.
I'll just make a point because I think you made a really good point there. Because dangling the carrot, that's what this philosophy is called. It actually can work, but it only works if you've got a really strong strike bowler at the other end. So if you had Bumrah bowling at the other end, then Travis Head would have felt that he needs a release. And the release can only come at the other end when Ashwin is bowling. So if you want to dangle the carrot, you need to really dry it up at the other end and probably bowl your best bowler. So he's the guy who Travis Head will not go after. He's the most venomous or most menacing bowler, your best strike bowler, who's has the best chance of getting the wicket. So here we are, Travis Head. He can't let that bowler get his wicket, right? Because they've probably talked about Bumrah so many times in the dressing room. He is the strike weapon. But then he needs to try and get his eye in at the other end. That's when you dangle the carrot. It doesn't work when you have a Siraj or a whoever at the other end and you've got Ashwin, because then it just loses its meaning. Because then ultimately what you can do is you can just then there's no pressure at either end, so you don't have to do anything reckless against Ashwin and see a flighted ball and go down the wicket and just have your eyes light up. Like, it doesn't work like that. It only works like that if you're under pressure, and if you're only under pressure when there's a strike bowler at the other end. So yes, I remember Babar Azam used to do this a lot with Shadab Khan or whatever. He used to always have, but then the issue was it wouldn't be Shaheen Afridi at the other end. It would be either a Mohammad Nawaz or some other
Raheem Ashrafi
ordinary
or
bowler.
whatever. Yeah.
Shaheen
Yeah.
Afridi would always have this thing of bowling the first 2 overs or first 4 overs and the last 4 overs, depending on what format you're playing, right? It was never in the middle. So I think I was a bit disappointed because I think Rohit Sharma is a phenomenal T20 and ODI white ball captain, right? But I felt in Test cricket, and it happens, right? When you lose three on the bounce at home, there's a lot of pressure. You start second guessing your decisions, right? You are the first Indian captain in so long to not only have lost a test match, but lost a series, whitewashed at home, and then to come back. And I'm sure you would have been seeing on the sidelines Bumrah do a fantastic job. And again, sometimes a fresh captain, a fresh perspective can be refreshing, right? To use the phrase fresh so many times, but you know what I mean. And here Bumrah's watching, and the mind plays funny tricks. I think I said this in a previous podcast, right? Cricket, in any sport, is as much a game of mental strength as it is about anything else. I mean, playing your mind is the most important thing. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's just one last point on the thing we discussed earlier on occupying the crease, facing balls. I think we mentioned Jaiswal and Rahul in the first game, the second innings of Perth. I mean, both of them scored. Rahul got 75, 76, and Jaiswal got 160. Both of them had a strike rates of around 50, in and around 50, right? And that's kind of the point where they hung in there. They didn't play all the flashy drives and cuts. Eventually they did, but it was really occupying the crease, tiring the bowlers out. And that was kind of what was needed. And similarly, okay, to a much lesser scale, that's what the Australian top order did, right? Well, Mick Sweeney and Abhishek, did that, and that's all pretty much that was needed in this Test match. But look, I think it's a wake up call, I guess, for India. They might think of changes. I mean, obviously, the biggest question is, does Sharma go straight back in?
I
I
mean,
know you have a theory. I know you have a
my
theory
theory,
around
can I
this.
please? If you could please, for all those fans who watched the Mentos ad, the Maki Batti Chala De, I mean, that's what it reminded me of, right? I feel, and look, I mean this in the most light-hearted of ways, so please don't take me seriously, please. But basically, I think Rohit Sharma is a genius. He made it seem as if he's sacrificing himself for the benefit of the team, and because KL Rahul did so well at the top, and he's just being selfless, a selfless leader, and letting KL Rahul stay at the top of the order. Shubman Gill is a youngster, don't want to confuse his game. Let him stay at his usual number 3. Let him sacrifice himself at number 6, when actually he probably didn't want to face the pink new ball. The swinging pink new ball. He'd be like, well,
Against
it's only
Mitchell
a win
Stark left arm.
against Mitchell Stark, no less. and say, you know what, I'll just bat at number six. I'll be he'll get the credit for being the selfish leader while also getting the benefit of batting when the ball's a bit older. But it didn't work out for him. It flopped both innings. Second innings, he got a peach. Right now, obviously, look. I mean, I don't know what the thinking was. I completely disagree with that thinking. I think if you really wanted KL Rahul at the top of the order, he should have batted at three and Gill bats at five. I don't think Rohit Sharma bats anywhere other than the top of the order, because otherwise you're just making him a slogger, right? He is very good at the top of the order if he is in the 11. And there's a big question of whether he should have been in the 11. I think Anil Kumble was making all those statements. Look, he should have been. Right? He said, "Oh, never change a winning combination." I mean, BS. Okay, like, I mean, they had a few passengers in that first Test match who didn't contribute at all. Right? I mean, you take out Jaiswal's 160, and you see suddenly, some of the others
Yeah,
didn't
it
really
was
contribute.
Bumrah and Jaiswal.
Sorry, Bumrah and Jaiswal, because you can't really, yes, Kohli, but pressure was not really there. The match was already won. But others, there were some newcomers there that obviously had to be replaced. So I think look, I don't know what they're going to do. But, the only one redeeming factor I'll say is, look, cricket's one of those things you take a view, and if the view comes off, it looks really good. If it doesn't, it looks silly, right? So on another day, India could have been aggressive and it could have come off and be like, you know what, this is really, positive intent and good cricket being played, because under lights with a pink ball, there'll always be a ball with your name on it. Whether you block every ball, there will always be a really, really, unplayable ball. So you might as well try and score so that you don't end up in a situation when you're 10 for 3 or something like that, right? Be positive, score your shots, because you'll eventually get a ball that has your name on it. Now, and we could have been sitting here and saying that had it worked the other way, where India would have defended, and then eventually got out bowled out for less than 100 because they never really scored anything. So it's one of those things where I sympathize a bit with Gautam Gambhir's philosophy. This is what he probably told them. This is what I think he did. But I genuinely believe somebody needs to step up and be an anchor if everyone else is going to play their shots. And there's a difference between being positive and being reckless. And India many times cross that. I mean, the way Shubman Gill, like, sometimes you make bowlers look better than they are. Like Mitchell Stark's ball to Shubman Gill, it swung slightly. I'm not going to deny that when it swung in, but the gap between bat and pad was enormous. I mean, Shubman Gill was almost trying to whack that over mid-off
There's a
or
bit of
something.
Abdullah Shafiq in there.
A bit of Abdullah, no, a bit of Safraz Ahmed, if you remember,
Yeah.
against
Yeah.
Stark at Perth. I mean, yes, it's a good ball in that it's on target and it maybe swung slightly, but at most it should have just been an inside edge onto the pad, right?
Yeah.
Like the expansive drive when you're new at the crease or not really got your eye in is ridiculous against a red hot bowler who's bowling in rhythm and has his tail up. Like, I just thought it's crazy. So I think some of that needs to be rejigged there.
I was going to set up a nice little uh, this or that question for you, but you kind of answered it. I was going to say whether you would prefer the start to Gill or the Cummins to Sharma delivery. But
I
given
think
that you
I'll
already,
hands down it's Cummins to Rohit Sharma. That is a peach. I could watch that all day long. Like, it is perfect. Perfect. Gill
I mean,
on the
top
other
of
hand,
off or left arm over the wicket swinging back in the banana swing,
yeah, yes.
or is it the classic top of off? So
No. I think if it was an in proper in swinging ball that really swung late and swung in, different story. As I said here, I think the batter made it look better than it
the
actually
problem with
was.
stuff the problem with that is then usually it ends up being LBW not bold, right? And then it's not that
I know,
exciting.
I know, I know. I know. I completely agree. But you know what I mean, right? Because if you saw that,
Yeah.
it should have been a inside edge onto the pad at most. If it
Yeah,
did,
it's because you have to try to drive it, right? If you try to block it or just whatever dab it away, he would have been fine. Similarly, the way he got on the first thing as well, it was like a half volley. It wasn't even a Yorker or a good length. It was like
not
a
at
half volley.
all.
He just missed a straight one from Scott Boland, I think it was.
Boland, yeah, that was Boland, yeah. But,
I mean, speaking of Scott Boland as well, I mean, I feel you have to feel for the guy, right? I mean,
I mean, he's just born in the wrong era, right? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Do you remember when Australia were brilliant in the early 2000s? And who was that middle order batter who never got a chance? There was a Brad Hodge later, but I remember there was a Simon Cattage for a little
Simon
while.
Katich was there. There was, I mean, there was Darren Lehman was there.
So Danny was
So
terrible though.
many.
I thought you always had it. But yeah, but you had loads
I mean,
of.
Mike Hussey came in so late, right? I
Mike
mean, because
Hussey
of
came
that.
in at 34.
Yeah. I mean,
You
there
know,
was Stuart McGill as well, who obviously in the spin department. There was
and
Kasparowicz
for a
and
long
Bickle
time,
in the. Yeah.
there was Andy Bickle, Brett Lee. Brett Lee only came in afterwards when Michael Kasparowicz then actually took a back seat and started
Yeah.
underperforming. But there were so many. Here's another one, Scott Boland, and he plays like what, once a year, twice a year, and he does brilliantly. And then unfortunately has to sit out. I personally think he should play the rest of
I
the
mean, a
series.
wicket of yeah. I mean, a wicket of his first ball in both innings. I mean, the first time was a no ball, but still, I mean that's phenomenal impact, right? And he just yeah, it's remarkable, but you just can't see how he fits in, when
But
Hazelwood is fit.
I'm going to question that, right? At the Gabba, why can't you play all four pacers and sit out Nathan Lyon? Because let's face it, India are brilliant against spin, right? So why not just play all four?
Uh, Potentially, yeah. And you were left with
I mean, and
Marnus,
who's your
but
part timer? I think they have who's a part timer? They've got a part timer.
they got Mitch
Stephen
Marsh
Smith,
as well, right? The problem is
Marnus
they've got Mitch
Labuschagne.
Marsh. No, they've got Mitchell Marsh as well, right? So maybe I don't know if they've got a spinning all day. Maybe Ashton Agar. I don't know, like if he's. I'm just saying because he's a batting spinner kind of thing, but I don't know who else there is.
No, Travis Head bowls as well, right? I think he bowls
Yeah,
right arm or left arm, right arm off spin. So they
yeah.
have a few part timers if they need to just get the ball rough a little and
Steve
spin.
Smith.
Steve Smith, Marnus Labuschagne, they all can just about bowl.
Yeah,
But I mean, why? I mean, Nathan Lyon has been good this series, but he's not been like phenomenal, right? I mean, and he hasn't got that many wickets. Just a
yeah.
thought. And at the Gabba, pace, bounce, I think you have
Potentially, yeah.
potential, yeah.
Potentially, yeah. Could be done. I don't know. Maybe at some point they probably will look to rest Stark as well later in the series. So maybe, but
Sydney. I'm not that straight.
yeah, yeah. Well, this one last thing on this match. To our fans, there were some questions around our previous comparison of Jaiswal and Saim Ayub and stuff like that. It was more a reference point, but given Jaiswal's 160 and then failures around that, I think he's more of a Shan Masood than
I
a.
was going to say, so just at least Shan Masood got a double hundred. Look, okay, guys, everybody, it's just now just because I said that, I don't want anyone to start thinking that I think Shan Masood is better than Jaiswal. Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. Jaiswal is miles more talented, right? And same with Jaiswal and Sam Ayub. I think in our podcast we actually said, that not to compare the two, and one is clearly much better than the other. But I was just making, as you say, a reference point. Okay, it has nothing to do with Indian versus Pakistan or anything like that. As Pakistanis, we draw parallels to what we often see the most. That's as simple as that. Okay, I can't even remember. Zaid, do you remember what the reference was? Was it just about? I think it was us actually saying that look at how much we've Otaofied and made Sam Ayub such a. I think
Yeah,
we were actually
exactly.
running down Sam Ayub, right? And saying that like we
Yeah,
brought him up to be this level of Jaiswal, and then here you actually see what Jaiswal is actually capable of, and Sam Ayub is nothing in comparison, right? It was, I think, more a sarcastic comment, but yes, there you go. But we won't stop because
yeah.
because it's very funny.
I mean that's how we do it, right? So I
That's how
mean,
we
we
do it.
always inevitably bring in a Pakistan comparison from somewhere or the other. I'm sure there'll be a couple more actually I've got in mind when we move into it. But I mean, speaking of should we move on to Pakistan or maybe what just quickly to wrap up on the India Australia thing. Any changes that you see from India's point of view for the GABA?
Look, I think it's the order. I think the order needs to change. I don't think they should press the panic button, especially given that there's only 4 days between the two test
Yeah,
matches. For me, it's the order. I
yeah,
put
I
Rohit
think
Sharma
yeah,
at the top. I don't think Shubman Gill is three in Australia. So you choose between Rahul and Shubman Gill. If you want Rahul in the top of the order because he's at least done well in the first test match in tough conditions, then Gill comes in at five. The bigger question is on the bowling side of things, right? because you've got these Washington Sundars and all these other players who missed out in this test match. And then you've got your Jadejas and, of course, Ashwin. So it's a tough choice, but remember you're playing at the Gabba, right? The Gabba, it doesn't spin that much. So you can't go in with too many spinners. That's just the one point that there's always a temptation
Yeah.
to bring in the Ashwin and the Washington in tandem, or the Jadeja as well. They need to rein that in a little. You can't play all of them. You probably need one spinner, max one and a half, and that's it. So
Yeah.
would I would probably be tempted to bring Washington Sundar in just to beef up the batting, but I mean, who do you drop?
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I think that there were already murmurs around Shami getting like parachuted in, flown in, but I think that'll be too soon for him. Maybe
I
the
think it'll
last
be
couple of test
Melbourne
matches.
that will come in.
So yeah, and I guess the other thing is Harshit Rana might be dropped for, I don't know, Akashdeep or someone else. That's the only other thing I can think. I mean, Nitesh Reddy probably he'll stay. He's done pretty well. Although I do think, I don't want to criticize him. I think some of his, the plaudits he's getting are a little inflated. It's a weird thing to say, but sometimes it's easier to bat with the tail and just go for your shots. Maybe you wouldn't have seen the same in different situations if he moves up the order. But anyways, he still played well. Credit to him. Um, but in terms of changes, look, I think probably Akashdeep for Rana. The poor guy bagged a pair and took no wickets, so I think that's
Yeah,
probably
that's an easy
him
one.
done.
Yeah, but yeah, so
Um, but yeah, I think longer term, if once Shami is fit, I think he's becoming kind of comes back straight in. And from Australia's point of view, I don't. Yeah, like you say, maybe Boland stays and Hazelwood comes in for Lion, but I'm not
I'll
sure
do
they'll do
that.
that given the yeah.
I would do that. But I
Uh,
think Lyon has a record of playing the most number of test matches on the trot, right? I think he's already
yeah.
broken that record. So now you don't need to. Now you can firmly rest him. Okay? And then in
Yeah,
classic Pakistani fashion, you'd say he's been rested.
rested. Yeah, yeah. I know. I don't know if they can. They can bring someone for Mitchell Marsh as well. If they got a spinning all rounder or somebody
Yeah, but they
instead of
don't. I
him.
think the other choices Cameron Green, Marcus
There's another
Stoinis.
one. I forgot his name. He was in the squad. He's a new guy. He's meant to debut if Marsh wasn't playing. Forgot his name, but he could have been him.
But who were the three pace all rounders they had? They had
Stoinis, Green, and
no, but Stoinis
Marsh.
hardly plays test matches. Wasn't there someone else?
Was there?
No, yeah, maybe it was these three. Yeah, but yeah,
Hmm.
well, look, I don't think they'll do that because Mitchell Marsh is a good batter, right? And at
Yeah.
number six, I think especially with Labuschagne still finding his form, Smith not really in form, I think they need that extra cushion at six, which is
He's
why.
so good that sometimes when he doesn't feel like batting, he just walks off. Like
Who?
he
Oh
just,
yeah, Mitch Marsh. I mean, like, you know what? I think give everyone a chance. I mean, that is absurd. He literally started walking before the umpire. I think Punt made a half-hearted appeal, and he suddenly walked over and he looked at, and he didn't even hit the ball. It was bizarre. It wasn't as if he started walking because he felt he hit the ball, and then he realized, oh shoot, the umpire's giving me out. Oh no, he didn't even hit the ball. So I don't know. He probably had to use the bathroom or something. I mean, I'll absolutely no idea. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
no clue.
that was
Bizarre.
really strange.
Bizarre.
Or maybe they had like instructions like we need to start bowling under the lights, so
Yeah,
that's
let's
your time up.
maybe.
But yeah, either way, I think it's going to be an enthralling test match at the
If
Gabba.
this was Kamran Akmal, you know what we'd all be saying right now. I won't finish. I won't say it, but we'd all be saying something that starts with an F and ends with Ixing. But I let you guess what I was going to. Okay, well, never mind. Never mind. Let's not go there. But speaking of Pakistan, I think it's good. It's a good segue to go into what happened in Zimbabwe. I mean, look, we won two Test matches. We had a
ODI.
random. No, sorry, ODIs. Then we had the two T20s we won, and then the third one we played a third string 11, and we were utterly hopeless for most of it. And then we had a bit of a chance, and then the last over, Zimbabwe, in my opinion, deservedly won. Right? I think they
Yeah.
deserve. They even in the other Test match, sorry, the other T20s, especially the first one, where Pakistan scored 165. It wasn't all that convincing.
For four. Yeah.
Right? I mean, yeah, 1,654. We talked about this last time, right? It wasn't as good as the scoreline suggested for that reason.
Yeah, and then I mean Zimbabwe, even in the third ODI, they started off really well. I think the middle order is just a bit weak when if Sikandar Raza doesn't fire, and so they collapse. But and they should have won the third ODI, third T20 a lot more easily.
Absolutely.
But yeah, look, I mean, in a way, from a Pakistan point of view, it was good to see that at least they've tried new people and they've given them a go. Aga Salman, I think, not T20 material, not definitely not captain. It's actually interesting. I mean, I'm sure you may have noticed that when they announced the squad, they didn't name him vice captain like they did for the Zimbabwe series.
Yeah, I
They
think
only
they
named
realized that
Rizwan captain.
they did this too quickly, and it was a silly decision. I mean, it's
Yeah, but
crazy.
it's
Like,
weird. Like they've got a vice captain for the test squad, which is that South
and in
Shakir was
fairness to
doing.
Zaid, I feel I agree with that. I think in Test cricket, because it's over 5 days,
Yeah,
any player, including the captain, can go inside for a bit of a rest and all that. So you need a vice captain, especially for strategizing and stuff. White ball. If you don't have an obvious one, don't give yourself one.
yeah,
That's my often that's my motto, especially in a team like Pakistan where the vice captaincy can be abused. So, look, um, I mean, for me, the big question, I mean, not question mark, the glaring omission is Fakhar Zaman, right? I mean, to say that he is not in form to make the Champions Trophy squad or even the, before that, the South Africa squad is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. He has this match fitness I don't know too much about, but I think he played in the domestic circuit and he looked pretty okay. He took some really good catches as well, so he looked athletic enough. And from a batting point of view, I mean, who is like what is to say that the current crop of players you're trying are any better in form than Fakhar Zaman? I think it's crazy, and he's done very well in South Africa. He averages some insane amount. So I don't know. I think that's a bit of politics at play there. So I won't really get into that.
yeah,
And I don't want to labor the point, right? I think classic point: Zimbabwe banana skin uh, features for Pakistan. They tried bench strength, but I think it shows what we've always known, which the bench strength needs proper grooming, right? And that's something that'll only take time. There are few bright spots and sparks there, but I think there's Tayyip Tahir who wasn't that bad. Um, so a few bright spots, but
Sufyan Hakim obviously was good, but
oh, Sufyan.
um,
Oh, yeah, Sufyan Champ. Of course, I
yeah,
forgot him. Yeah, I mean, and we needed somebody, right? And Abrar Ahmed to some extent, although I've seen him play
yeah,
against better quality opposition, and he's not been as good. These mystery spinners do
yeah,
have inflated stats against lower quality opposition who just get bamboozled a little. Oh,
yeah,
the mystery gets the better of them, but I think Sufyan is the one to be more excited
yeah,
about. So some
yeah.
good things there. But speaking of cricket all around the world, right? I just want to just touch on. I think you touched on it briefly as well. England, New Zealand, because that was a big result, right? I mean, England were staring down at the barrel, and then Harry Brook took them out of jail as he so often does, and then New Zealand had no answer. I mean, it's insane to think that literally a month ago, these two teams had such contrasting fortunes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I mean that's cricket, right? I just find it how strange, not strange, but impressive as well. How good England are when it comes when it looks so good when it
Comes off.
comes off, right?
Yeah,
It's amazing. To score 400, 450 at five and over, five and a half and over. It's amazing. Even Joe Root, right? I mean, he played at a decent strike rate. He hit like a reverse scoop or something to get to his 100. I mean, the audacity to do that on 98. Um,
but I would say New Zealand
yeah,
had shorter boundaries, right? I'm sure that
yeah,
helped.
yeah.
Smaller
I'm sure it
boundaries.
does. Yeah, it does. But the conditions, it's meant to swing a lot more and movement. Maybe that works for the England
They
batters
like the
because
pace, right? Because
yeah,
of England themselves.
exactly. So maybe it is time to do an Akib Javed special and rough up the pitch once.
So let's do
I
it.
mean,
Let's do it.
if there was
Be like
any,
Christchurch, really
I
spinning.
mean, those were the conditions that New Zealand did well in, and the conditions that England didn't do well in. So maybe that is now the template
With the
as well
Dollars
in.
fans out, running around those
Um,
Christchurch wickets of
but
sudden.
also from New Zealand, I found it weird that Will Young was the man of the player of the series against India. Not for not doing nothing exceptional except batting through time and scoring a few crucial runs. But he didn't get a game because Kane Williamson came back in. So more of how much of your kind of preset templates do you follow?
I agree. Yeah.
The similar Rohit Sharma versus KL Rahul Gill debate where he just slots back in without context, and poor Will Young, who was man of the series against India, is now dropped.
Yeah.
um, but look, yeah, it's an exciting test series in one way because there's so many runs being scored. Atkinson getting a hat trick and stuff. But yeah, it's that, in a weird way, it's kind of helped India and Australia because that's kind of defeated New Zealand's chances of getting into the
Yeah, I
WTC
think it's
final,
just
right?
South
So
Africa now. I think it's South
yeah,
Africa. Guess who they're playing next?
yeah.
So let's
I
see
mean,
what
yeah,
happens.
we're recording this on the eve of the final day of the South Africa Sri Lanka Test match. And South Africa are slightly ahead, I think. In Sri Lanka need 140 more with 5 wickets in hand, but they've come back. I think they were like 200 behind or needed 200 to win, and they had a good partnership. So let's see. You never know. Sri Lanka might do what they did a few years ago, a Kusal Pereira special to to win it.
But I think
But yeah,
chances
South
are South
Africa win.
Africa are going to take this one home, and
Yeah, yeah.
I think as a neutral, you'd want that because it means the WTC stays wide open.
Yeah, and I think as it stands, India are now third in the table, but obviously it's going to move around a lot.
Move around a lot. Yeah.
Um, but uh, but yeah, so there's a lot going on, lots, which is I get in a way it's good. We haven't had this kind of a three horse race for a while
A long
in
time.
any format of cricket. So it's good to see how this might pan out. Obviously, Australia got Sri Lanka to play after that as well, so it'll be interesting. Either way, if the India Australia series ends up 3-2, either way, I think things will still be
Yeah.
pretty interesting. But if it's 4-1 to Australia, then yeah, India might struggle. Um, but anyway, just one last thing on the Pakistan. Well, moving back to the Pakistan squad announcements. Shaheen Afridi being dropped from the Test squad. Is that
Excellent
something you
decision.
agree with?
Excellent. Mir Hamzazin. Excellent decision. That's Akib Javed right there. I mean, absolutely the right call. Right. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's spot on. Naseem Shah also rested from, I think it's the T20s. Again, you need to
Yeah.
preserve them because they're going to play a Champions Trophy. So, I mean, for me, I was happy with all the calls. I think Sajid Khan, unlucky again to miss out. I would have had him in the squad at least.
The
So
squad
you have
Boland of Pakistan.
Scott Boland. I would have had him in the squad as a as a number two to Noman Ali. But as if you recall, I think I said before that if I had to choose one in South Africa, I choose Noman Ali because you're not going to get many wickets in South Africa with spin. It's more about containment, and Noman Ali does a better job, and he's left-handed, so he comes with the angle as well. And plus, both are good batters, but Noman Ali just has that Brian Lara-esque technique. So sorry.
Yeah.
Cool. But there you have it. Look, so we've got lots more to talk about. Obviously, an announcement is imminent on the Champions Trophy. We won't talk about this in this episode, but we will definitely address it and whatever comes out of it the next time we speak. And then by then also we'd have maybe a little more clarity post the South Africa Sri Lanka Test series culmination. But other than that, Zai, thank you very much. And cricket has never been more exciting, I'd say, at least in the Test arena for the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting times and onwards and upwards. Thanks
There
for
you go.
watching.
Thank you. Bye.